There's so many streaming services. So now you're paying for all of these things. And just think about that. Like, so you're actually probably paying more than you were paying before.
You need to be pushing and pulling the customers with you because they look to us, many of our customers look to us as kind of that de facto person in charge.
In a marketing organization, you need relief valves for sure. Like you always have to have contractors on speed dial, agencies on speed dial, but you have to make sure that they're willing to go deep with you and understand your business.
Real talk backed up with real action. This is GTM News Desk.
I'm Nick Bennett.
And I'm Mark Hillens.
Let's see what's trending.
Welcome to another edition of GTM News Desk. My name is Mark Hillens. Nick, what's going on?
Happy whatever day we're on. I'm excited to be here.
Happy Sunday. We're recording the Sunday morning, 8 a.m. So, you got Nick and I on a great day. First featured headline story. AI is going to take everyone's jobs, Nick. You're fired, Nick. I mean, that's basically what we've been hearing for like how many years now?
Yeah, it won't be the first time that I've heard that, so.
No kidding. So if you check out Upwork, we'll put the link as we always do in the show notes. There was an interesting study they did very recently. It actually came out of McKinsey, and Upwork kind of summarized some of it, looking at the C-suite leaders and their point of view on how AI is going to help with efficiency and productivity, doing more with less. Everyone's favorite term, Nick, do more with less. Nick, do more with less.
I feel like we're doing more with less right now. It's but it's I mean I see that all the time. It's like, do the same. Like, why can't you do more with less budget? But like, you can only be so scrappy.
Exactly. So Katie Foote is our featured guest during segment number 3 of today's show. She's an amazing marketing leader, an amazing person. We get deep into marketing leadership with her. We have a lot of questions prepared. So I picked this newsworthy study because when you think about AI, everyone's saying, well, look, you don't have to hire as many people. You can replace 25%, 30%, maybe half of your marketing team because AI is going to be able to create all that great content, do all the sales outreach, do all the management of the tools that you have in your tech stack, do editing, do content repurposing. Yeah, sure. I mean, so look, like, I think there's a disconnect, Nick. The point of the segment number 1 today, there's a disconnect between the C-suite and like what's really happening on the ground. Because if you look at some of these stats, right, 96% of C-suite leaders say they expect AI to increase the company's overall productivity levels. Okay, yeah, that's a lot. I think that's true generally. But then the question for all of these things in the study is how? Like, who's going to teach your company how to do these things, right? Like, that is the thing that's been missing in the AI conversation to date. It's like, how is it going to do it? What do people need to do? How are you enabling and empowering people to do that? Because 39% of companies in that study, they're already mandating use of AI tools. Sure, you can tell me to use a tool, but a tool is worthless if you don't know how to use it. You take a hammer and you give it to someone who doesn't know how to use a hammer, they're going to do some stupid shit with that hammer probably. So I just think this whole AI thing is getting so overblown. It's in a huge bubble. It reminds me of the .com thing when you have like pets.com, toiletpaper.com, everything effing.com, and it's now everything effing .ai.
Yeah, I do think you're going to see more people get hired into AI specific roles. Like if you go search LinkedIn now for like job titles that are hiring with AI, I have seen a huge increase in the number that's on there, but still, there's no precedent that's been set. So it's like you're creating a job, but like there's no proven framework or path or anything like that shows this is going to be successful for hiring a role like this to get these outcomes that you want to achieve.
Yeah, and we've talked to past guests like Amanda and Manoj, Amanda from Spark Toro, Manoj from Sales Intel, a little about this AI thing and whatnot. And like, look, like, yes, it's gonna impact us, but I love your point around like the AI piece of the jobs, where it's like, we need you to come in with a skill set and a point of view. I mean, maybe not much experience, because I mean, look, it's only been like a couple of years at best for this AI stuff to really have taken hold. But like, look, like the people who are gonna be responsible for figuring out how to use AI, that could be a job, right? Like I could see AI specific role for RevOps. Like you're a specialist on the RevOps team, focused on AI. You're a specialist maybe across your entire marketing organization on how to use AI for different jobs within marketing. I think those are innovative things again, but that's enabling, and then that person's educating and helping all the other people like take this top-down mandate and actually make it real. So don't just say shit, C-level folks, back it up with the right level of investment across the entire organization.
Preach.
All right, that's segment number one. What's headline number two?
Headline number two is all about the NBA. So I don't know about you. I'm a huge Celtics fan. I know you enjoy the Bruins. I know you dabble in the Celtics. Nothing wrong there. You know, it's city of champions. I guess you kind of have to when you live in Boston. But if anyone out there hasn't seen this, the NBA had a new media agreement. And before we get into our conversation with Katie around marketing leadership, I wanted to touch on this because I think the NBA's new media agreement for 2024, it's massive. It's not just in terms of dollars, though, is massive. I think it was like six point something billion dollars. But it's how it reshapes the way content is distributed and consumed. And I think that's the key part here. And so when I think of, for the marketers that are listening to this, there's a few key takeaways. First, it highlights the evolving kind of media landscape. So when you think about like streaming, all of those things, you have both traditional now, and the NBA is smart enough to understand that, like, listen, I can't just rely on traditional programming. It also has streaming platforms. It shows the importance of adapting our marketing strategies to reach audiences wherever they are, kind of like a people first mindset. You're meeting the people where they are. And it's just a reminder that today's world, a multi-channel approach isn't just beneficial, it's essential to everything. And I'm curious how MLB and NHL, and I don't even know if a lot of these other ones could do similar stuff, but I'm sure that's going to come down the road. NFL's kind of already doing it a little bit.
Yes, they have.
The other piece that I wanted to touch on is the value of content. So again, going back, this is almost $7 billion between three different media entities. So like it underscores how high quality, engaging content continues to be the cornerstone of effective marketing. And so as marketing leaders, you need to kind of keep investing in content that resonates with your audience and drives engagement, but also adds value. It's interesting to me because like I watch a decent amount of NBA games and, I'll be able to put some on, Amazon, be able to watch some on ESPN, some on ABC. I think what they're doing here is they're staying ahead of the curve. They're valuing their content, they're leveraging the data, and they're open to partnerships, which is a huge piece of people first, and the channels that go along with it. So I'm excited. It is a massive amount of money, but I think it's going to be really awesome to see how this shapes the future for other organizations.
Well, it's distribution leverage. So it's a good and a bad thing, I think, right? Because it's giving them, like you were alluding to, access to new audiences, especially younger demographics that do not have any type of traditional cable at all. And they're just getting all of their programming content through the cloud, right? Through the internet. So there's that. But at the same time, it fragments, you just mentioned like 3 or 4, there's probably 6 or 7 places you now need to go to get this programming. So I think it's a blessing and a curse. It's tricky. I mean, money's money. People want more money, so I get that. But I do feel like it's probably a net positive thing because, cable TV is in a massive decline. Like that is a really shitty business to be in. And sports is probably one of the only things people watch live. Why would you watch anything else live? You just record it, skip all the commercials. So I don't know. So it makes sense. What I would want to see them do now, and I think the NFL has done a little bit of this, NBA has done a little bit of this as well, is how do they take all this now and like bring in the community side of all this? Like, how do they activate the fan base a bit more? The NBA, I feel has done the best probably because they've done a lot with Twitter maybe they still do, Nick, right? They've done a lot of Twitter. They've done a lot with like social networks, I think, right? Like they partner-led growth, partner with these, not just media organizations, but like the actual social networks, which are also sometimes media delivery mechanisms as well, to create a connection with the fans.
Yep, 100%. And the last thing I would say is, there is another downside as the consumer of this is, think about that. You now have to go and subscribe. Like, so I pay for cable and I pay for Amazon. Some people might pay for HBO or Max or whatever, or Peacock, or there's so many streaming services. So now you're paying for all of these things. And just think about that. Like, so you're actually probably paying more than you were paying before. And you have to go, like you said, the friction of going all these different places. But I don't know. I'm still trying to keep a positive mindset.
Why do you still have cable?
I'm trying to get out of it, to be honest with you, but there's certain channels that the wife likes to watch, and like a lot of streaming services don't provide those channels.
What channels?
Like Lifetime is one of them. Fubo used to do Lifetime. They actually just got rid of it. And then there was one other one, but I've done a lot of research, and I could save like $700 a year by switching to a streaming service, and I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Lifetime. That is a first. That is a first. I've never heard that.
I do not watch Lifetime. To be
Sure.
fair, so.
If your wife watches it, Nick, you watch it. We all know that. We all know that, my friend. All right, folks. Those are the 2 headline stories of the week. Now it's time with an amazing conversation with Katie Foote, the CMO of CaptivateIQ. She and I worked together at Drift for about a year. She's an amazing 13-year Salesforce veteran. You do not want to miss this conversation. I'm so excited about it. Here we go. Katie Foote, what's going on?
It's so good to see you, Mark. Thanks for having me today.
It has been too long, way too long. Katie and I, for those who don't know, spent some really quality time together at Drift. So Katie, again, great to reconnect with you. Katie has been a longtime marketing leader. How many years in a leadership position has it been for like marketing, for you?
2010 was my first leadership position in marketing. And I remember it that quickly because I went on a maternity leave and came back and started managing the creative copywriting team when I came back, which at the time I thought was a pretty cool progressive thing for a business to say, you're coming back from mat leave, but we believe in you and we know you can do this.
There you go. Well, Nick will grade my marketing leadership capabilities, and I'll grade yours later on in this little conversation we have. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we got some questions for you. So folks, we're going to ask Katie, 4 or 5 questions like we normally do for this third segment. And then if you go to TAC Network after the fact, Katie's going to share some secrets with you when it comes to maybe working with CEOs, working with your marketing team. She's got a lot of experience. I reported to Katie when I was at Drift. It was amazing. It was very short-lived, unfortunately. I mean, was it not even a year, technically?
It was maybe just about a year. I think you left like April of 22? Is that right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. To be to your own CMO role.
Yes, and I learned a lot there too.
You can compare notes.
Exactly. So we always ask a question about like how to make something not suck, Katie. So in this case, how do you make marketing leadership not suck today? And you can interpret that however you want.
This is a really tough time in B2B marketing leadership, just because the market just hasn't done what we thought it was going to do. If I hear one more time, like it's coming back, and then it doesn't, like we might all lose our minds here. So it's not for the faint of heart. I think you have to keep a sense of humor. We're not saving lives here. I think there's also a reason why, marketing, I think the average marketing tenure is 18 months in role. And, so I think you have to keep a sense of humor. You have to, this sounds maybe a little woo-woo, but I've really just tried to surrender a little bit. If you try to control everything and hold on too tight, it almost creates this unnatural behavior. And so I've really been trying to lean into this idea of whatever's going to happen is going to happen. How do I show up and be the best version of myself for my team, for this business, and have a body of work that I can stand on, regardless of where this whole thing might go? So there are days that do suck, but I think someone told me recently, if you can find a calibration where you are thinking things don't suck or are generally happy 50% of the time, it's probably a pretty good gig in today's market.
Love that answer. Before, Nick, you asked the next question, it reminds me of that Disney song, like Let It Go.
Oh, yeah, Elsa. Elsa and Anna.
Yes.
She was a trailblazer, that Elsa.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's spot on. I mean, you want to like try to influence as much as you can. I definitely think through, doing one like CMO stint and being 2 VPs of marketing, like looking and working with some incredible CMOs. The more that you can understand when to push versus when not to push. Yeah. That's pretty important skill.
Which battle you want to fight. And, sitting in marketing, you're at an intersection of so many different things, unlike most parts of the business. And so you often tend to be what we describe like the shit umbrella for a lot of stuff that might be coming down the pike. I think if you can be a good shit umbrella for your team and protect your team from a lot of that thrash, that also helps marketing not suck for them either. So I'm always very cognizant of that potential thrash that the typical marketer can get thrown into on a day-to-day basis and try to protect that as much as possible.
Everyone's a marketer, right, Nick?
That's a funny term. I'm gonna start using it, but like I mean, I've been grateful for CMOs that I have worked for, and I worked for Mark at our last company together. And I've worked for some that have done really good from a perspective, and then I've done some where they've just let the shit keep on rolling. So yeah, I mean, I love that. I think it's really good. So I think that kind of goes into our next question. So, what's the biggest mistake made by marketing leaders as we kind of, exit 2024 and start to think about 2025 that they should avoid for 2025 that in your experience you think might set them up for success?
I think about if you zoom way out and think about the trajectory of marketing, it's only been in the past 20 years or so that marketers have actually had a seat at the executive table. And they've been able to get a seat at the executive table because they've talked a lot about the impact they're making on the overall revenue of an organization. So talking more numbers, data, attribution, which in and of itself can be an enigma. I think the challenge there is that the pendulum has almost swung too far in the direction of prove the ROI of every single thing that you do. I'm sure the three of us could agree. What I love about marketing is those magical components, those white glove experiences, the emotion that you can elicit from someone if you take them on an effective journey through content or through events, whatever it might be. And those things can often be hard to track. And so we had this pendulum back in the Mad Men era of advertising where it was all about storytelling and visuals and art. And I think over the course of the past 20 years, the pendulum has swung so far to the science. Show me every single dollar that you're spending and what's the ROI I'm going to get on that. And let me benchmark you against X, Y, and Z company. I think the mistake we need to avoid going into the back half of this year and into 2025 is finding the right balance between the two. This market is so inundated with people cold calling and AI-driven content. And how are we connecting with human beings? Even if we're selling, security software or something incredibly technical, we're still selling to people. We're still marketing to people. And so I think the marketers who can find a way to storytell effectively and to differentiate with that storytelling and with some uniqueness around the essence of their brand will also see a return. You just might not be able to prove it. And so finding that balance between the art and the science of marketing, I think, is a really important thing to think about for next year.
I like that a lot. I have a newsletter called the People First Go to Market newsletter. And I recently actually wrote about this, how, marketing is both a blend of art and science, and kind of broke down from a lot of different third-party research reports that I've read in just talking to marketing leaders, like what that actually looks like. So it's interesting and actually really nice and refreshing to hear you also say that. So definitely on board with it.
I mean, if you think about your own purchase decisions, at the end of the day, if a product seems to be about the same as another product, it costs about the same, but you had a really great interaction with company A and company B was maybe just so, I don't know, you're probably going to skew towards company A. So I think it can be a difference maker for sure.
Return on investigation.
I like that. Well, we just launched a new marketing campaign that's called Return on Incentives, because obviously I help market commission software and incentives. And so it's funny, return on investigation. I like that.
And the reason I bring that up is I feel like a CEO, which is going to get to our next question about CEOs, if they ask themselves, how much return am I getting by having the marketing leader or other people on their team investigate this attribution fallacy, right? Or investigate what isn't working, or investigate, and prove to me your worth, and just instead, hey, go create great, to your point, Katie, stories, content, experiences. Oh my God, you probably could get a lot more done and get more ROI, the real ROI at the end of the day.
And don't get me wrong, for all of the CFOs who might be listening out there, my friends in finance, there are things that we need to be able to justify a return on. I'm still a big believer in what's your ultimate target and how does that waterfall all the way up to MQLs and leads. But I do think working as a part of it, the culture within an executive team and an organization is you have to kind of believe in marketing, and you have to believe that there's some level of investment that's needed. There are just some things that you can't ever prove the direct impact on, and be okay with an element of that. I think that's what modern CMOs are really hoping for.
So then let me just double click on that really quick. What is one of the ways you would recommend people do that with their finance partners and other business partners? Some of the ways they can do that in education.
Yeah, well, my finance partner sits on every single one of my directs meetings. So they just have a seat at the table. His name is RK. He's amazing. And that way he understands, like, I earn some credibility with him because he's able to see how I run my business. So I'm not the stereotypical marketer that's just looking to set money on fire. Every one of my directs calls starts with a health of business, like where are we, how many leads, MQLs, how are we pacing the operating plan, where are we with meetings and pipeline. So we're starting and leading by example of, hey, we've got a business to run here. So that creates some trust, like, okay, Katie's actually trying to be business-minded in her approach. And then we talk about other big bets that we might want to be making. And so just having that two-way communication, RK has a seat, is really important. I also am very transparent with my ELT peers. So we obviously meet at least once a week, and we use an OKR framework, so objectives and key results. And I'm very clear on, I have an enviable culture OKR, I have a full funnel demand OKR, but then I have a brand OKR. And a lot of the key results associated with that don't necessarily yield, one-to-one return. So I think just ongoing communication and being transparent. Mark, when you and I worked together, I always did the Friday 5 to the company. I think marketing just has to over communicate. This is what we're doing. This is what we said we were going to do. These are the results we saw. Here's what we learned. You just got to bring people along on that journey because it is such a nuanced, complex, yet misunderstood discipline within an organization.
See, Nick, it's why we do weekly pacing.
It's true. It's worked out for us, I would say.
There you go.
2-person, company. We're trying to do our best to emulate like a more sophisticated organization because it's important because then you can both learn and celebrate.
Well, I actually think a 2-person company, it's sometimes easier, right? Because you can it is what it is, and you get to the simplicity as you scale and grow. As more people are involved, that's when it gets harder. And you can, coming from Salesforce, man, trying to do a business review at Salesforce and peeling back the onion, it's just almost impossible.
Well, let's talk about that. Maybe we could talk about Benioff or, no, we don't have to name names, but what's a common misconception that CEOs have about their marketing leaders? You can name more than one too, Kate. You can do as many as you want.
Okay. Common misconceptions. Well, I think the stereotype that I mentioned earlier, the marketer just wants to do pretty things and build PowerPoints and spend a bunch of money. I've actually not found that to be the case in my CMO networks. Marketers bear a tremendous amount of responsibility. They're often the tip of the spear to drive demand and to tell a story into the market. They take it all on their back, and they're also the easiest, they're the first to be cut when times are tough and rifts come along. I mean, you come from the content world, Mark. How many of your peers and fellow content folks have been impacted by that reality in the past 3 years?
Tough times.
Yeah, tough times. And I think that's actually representative of just the misunderstanding that the C-suite often has when it relates to marketing. They're a cost center. We could do it without them. Anybody can do this. AI can do this. So I think there's a lack of understanding just about the discipline in general. I also think what's really interesting about marketing, and I'm in a very unique situation in my current position because our CEO is actually a finance guy. So he started the company because he was having to calculate commissions and it was a complete nightmare. And so that's interesting. But he also had to step in and lead marketing. They had about a year-long search until I came into the position. And so he has a lot more empathy for, oh, wow, this is really broad and really deep and really hard in a way that a lot of CEOs don't necessarily have, which I really appreciate. So, I think I worked with most of the bosses that I've had have not had that experience and that perspective. The way that I've navigated that has been, again, over communication. You've got to just bring, hey, so-and-so, remember I told you we were going to do this thing? We're doing this thing, and just reminding them over and over and over again what they asked you to do, or give them choices. You asked me to do project A. You've now added project B and C. We can't do all three at once. Here are a couple options. And just continuing to over communicate and make sure that you're always aligned, because it's very easy to get misaligned and sideways as the marketing leader with your boss or your ELT. And by the way, your ELT peers, all of their objectives and goals are likely going to be different and sometimes even at odds with what you're trying to do in marketing. And so you've got to make sure you are in lockstep with your manager, your boss. And then as you bring he or she along on that journey, they're giving you air cover to your peers to be like, no, this is where I want Katie focused. This is what success looks like. This is what success looks like in terms of marketing, because everyone has a different opinion on that. Are we trying to build demand? Are we trying to build our brand? There are different tactics. You know this. Marketing is a Swiss Army knife. I can go down any path you want me to go down, but we need to agree what is the most important thing because if we get distracted by squirrel, we're never going to get to where we're trying to go.
Oh, I love that. And I mean, so it's similar to what Nick and I do with our business. Our boss is our customers. And we have preached since day one. And he's like, Mark, just shut up because I say this so much. You need to be the one driving the communication. You need to be pushing and pulling the customers with you, because they look to us. Many of our customers look to us as kind of that de facto person in charge, right? Like, hey, you need to have a point of view. You need to be driving this, or like, why are we paying you again? And I do think, just aside from an agency standpoint, and maybe a quick conversation on this, Katie, because you've hired a lot of agencies, love to know like your perspective on that. But like, our motto is over communicate.
Yes, communication is key, especially in this remote first world. We do not have all those little touch points in the kitchen anymore that we all had early in our career. So when people get sideways at work right now, it seems so obvious, and it's probably annoying to say it out loud, but you guys, we have to over communicate. We have to bring people along on the journey. Otherwise, there's no little micro moments of human interaction day to day that's going to save us. So I've worked with phenomenal agencies in the past, but I found it really hard so much of brand and the work that a marketer is doing is so unique to that specific company. And you almost have to be an extension of that team and really embedded with them. So if you're going to work with an agency, they need to have the level of commitment to sit on your staff calls, to be an extension of your team. They can't feel like somebody they're on the easy buttons here. Like, you can't just outsource work. In a marketing organization, you need relief valves for sure. Like, you always have to have contractors on speed dial, agencies on speed dial, but you have to make sure that they're willing to go deep with you and understand your business. I think that's why people develop a Rolodex of agencies over time too. Like, there's a couple preferred ones that you always go to because they know you, they know your working style, and you guys can get to brass tacks pretty quickly.
It's a nice little plug. Thank you, Katie. It's good. We'll turn that into an ad.
We didn't do that on purpose either. That was all organic.
That's awesome. All right, let's ask Katie the last question, Nick. And then, one of the things I want to unpack during the exclusive content for TAC Network subscribers, Katie, is your Friday 5, among other things you do. But that was a great thing you did at Drift. But go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So last question. So as you know, or as you may know, we're all about people first, everything that goes with it. So how can marketing leaders take a people first approach to their leadership style?
This is just so core to who I am. I don't know if you are familiar with the Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 2, which is like connection, helping, caring about people first. That's just like the ooey gooey goodness of life for Enneagram 2s. So, but I work with a lot of other folks that are not oriented that way. And so sometimes I'll come at this problem from such a people position, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I know it's not inherent for everyone, though I do think marketing tends to bring in the people who love to connect, because that's essentially the spirit of marketing, is we're getting attention, we're connecting to pull people through a process. Look, if you are a marketing leader, how are you going to get work done if you can't inspire and motivate people? Because you can't actually do all the work yourself. It's like whack-a-mole if you try to. So even if you're not oriented to being people first or feelings first, it's just a business strategy. You have to work and flex that muscle. Otherwise, you will never get anything done. People will leave and go elsewhere. People do not leave jobs or salaries. They leave other managers. And so I'll give you a little teaser. I'll unpack my 3 Ps framework here in a little bit: people, pipeline, process. And it always starts with people.
Personally, I've left managers in the past,
Yeah.
Specifically for that reason. So I'm excited. I'm sure Mark might know a bit more about the framework than I do, but I'm excited to unpack it. Mark, what do you think? Should we hop over, go to the exclusive piece?
The 3 Ps, yes. And definitely check out Katie Foote, on LinkedIn. Katie's awesome. And she's at this great company, CaptivateIQ. We talked about that at the beginning of this whole, segment and whatnot. But she's doing some incredible things. She was at Drift, and you were at Salesforce for a long time.
10 years. I was at Target. For those of you who remember email marketing back in its heyday, it was kind of like what Drift became for chat. We were email marketing. We went public. We were acquired by Salesforce, spent 13 years there, and then took the leap over to Drift. And now I'm at Captivate. It's been a wild ride.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's get to the deep stuff. So check that out, tacnetwork.com. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of GTM News Desk, presented by the TAC Network. To hear our full conversation with our guest today, head to the link in the show notes to subscribe to the TAC Network. Until next time, I'm Mark Killens.
And I'm Nick Bennett. Keep it people first, everybody.